Hey, I want to make a follow up video to the one I made yesterday called I Miss My Siblings, Wish I Knew What to Do. I still feel that way, I still miss my siblings. I'm not as emotional about it today or tonight. Last night, for whatever reason, I was kind of hyper focusing on it, and it was making me have sort of a hard time. I'm not really hyper focused on it tonight, but I just sort of wanted to add some context that I think would make sense for why I did what I did with just blocking them. Because my mother and I had an argument, and my mom did my taxes for me, or my grandmother did my taxes for me, and then the check went to my mom. And I don't remember exactly how, but my mom wound up getting my tax refund for me. And I was giving her my vehicle because she had loaned me about $1,800 to fix it up when I needed to fix it up after we had been in contact and been in touch, and I thought that we were trying to rebuild our relationship. And I don't really think it's that abnormal for someone who is not even. I was literally 20 years old, so I don't think it's that abnormal for a 20-year-old to accept some help. And I was paying my mom back for the loan that she gave us to fix up my vehicle. And I had paid her back a few $100s, but then another issue popped up with my vehicle where we didn't know whether or not it was going to cost another few $1,000s or if it was going to be a simple fix. And my anxiety towards the vehicle just sort of got overwhelming, and I figured not having to pay for a second vehicle's car insurance could also help us, which I wound up being wrong because the gas mileage, I think, from having to share the vehicle and having to drop each other off and stuff, I think equals at least what car insurance per month would. So I was wrong on that end, but I didn't realize that. And I think most 20-year-olds would have a parent or someone who could kind of talk them through that sort of thing and help them see the error of their judgment, but I did not have that. So, moving on, that's all sort of relevant. I'm not really sure if maybe sometimes I share things that aren't exactly relevant to what I'm trying to say or the idea or whatever. But, I'm doing my best, so hopefully it's okay. But anyway, I wound up just talking with my mom, and because she was more financially able, which, some people might be like, see, your mom was doing better than you, or you should listen to your, the thing is my mom was 42. I was no longer living under the her roof, but she was still getting child support, and I'm pretty sure she actually managed to get child support for a couple of years after I was 18 because I went to college. I never realized that, but after I've learned that you can get child support for your child if they're still in college. I'm pretty sure she kept getting child support. So, but she didn't use that to help me at all. Everything that I ever got from her was always a loan. And, I was at 18, 19, I was told that I am 100% financially responsible for myself, and my family, they didn't help me, at all. I've never had any of them ever help me pay my rent. I've never had any of them ever help me pay insurance, car bill, phone bill. None of that. My grandma sent me probably a total of $200 my freshman year of college because she would randomly send me $25, $50. And I remember exactly how many times and stuff, which some people might think is odd, but she literally sent me less than $300 my entire freshman year, which it did help a lot and everything. But I also had to like pay for my own bus pass to get back home, which was like $80 every time. My mom paid for it when I went back home for Christmas, but again, I don't think that's like abnormal. And then the thing was, every time that something like that was done for me, it was held over my head forever. So that's part of why I remember it so well, is because it was always held over my head. So I had to always remember every single time, because I knew that I was going to have to like express gratitude every single time, even like way in the future. It would probably like that's why, you know, I can remember exactly how much my grandma sent me, because like I kind of had to. Anyway, with my younger siblings, and blocking them, I kind of did what my grandmother did to me. And I really do feel like I had sort of a mental breakdown. And I will admit, like, I did block them. I don't think that blocking them initially was selfish, because, like I said, I was having a mental breakdown and I was having a hard time controlling myself. And I knew that. And I did not want to come off as any more crazy to them than I already did, based off of like what my family was feeding them and that sort of thing. And based off of like, I did, you know, I lashed out at my mom. My mom in my life has literally called me a piece of shit. I mean, that's like, she's literally called me that a lot growing up. And she's insulted my masculinity a lot growing up too. Like, she would call me weak, and just like one time when I got my belly pierced, she was like, wow, you can be a F slur for gay people, but you really don't have to show off that you're a F slur for gay people. So like, my mom has called me and said some pretty mean things, and in my mind at the time, I was like replaying all of those, and I finally, like, I called her, you know, the female dog word. I called her, see you next Tuesday. And those were the two that I used. But I did call her that, and, you know, my siblings were mad at me for calling our mother that. However, which, like, that is valid. I should not have done that. However, they did not see any of the stuff my mom had said to me. They also did not understand that my mom basically cheated us out of about $200 from my $800 tax return. And, this is the thing, everything with my mom is always so convoluted. So, like, I didn't really have any hard proof to like show my grandma about the conversation, because every time I would ask my mom, like, let's text and talk, my mom would always be like, let's have a phone call. And then in a phone call one time, we made an agreement, and then she literally cheated us out of $200. I can't remember the exact details, but because I wasn't able to like show that, she made it out like I just don't know how to do math, and I'm just really dumb, and I'm just like going crazy over something that, you know, doesn't even exist. And my family, like I said, had been angry already with me for like CPS getting involved, because TJ called CPS the first time he ever came over because of how bad the condition of the home was. And he was a daycare worker, so he was a mandated reporter, and he felt like he had to. And, you know, once CPS got involved, a lot of things happened, including our dogs having to be put down. So, you know, he didn't call for no reason, and they didn't do nothing once they were involved. And so my family held that over my head, even though they should not have, because, like, they just shouldn't have. Like, I didn't do anything wrong. I did not lie. I did not make anything up. I simply answered the person who called me from the CPS whatever office, and I just answered their questions truthfully, and that's all that I did. So my family also used that to make my siblings believe that, like, if that never happened, there would not be the tension between me and them. And really, that's kind of true, but then I would have always been trapped under their thumb. I would still be, like, probably living with my mom in her basement because I would have been too afraid of the world, because that's the way that I was raised, was to be afraid of the world. And it just, like, I would have never grown as a person. So I just, and I did what had to be done. My aunt literally told me thank you, because if I never did a lot of the things that I did, my mom would have never been forced to change. And my aunt literally told me that from the time that they were little girls, my mom has always gotten away with everything and has never been truly held accountable, because she just hasn't been. Like, she's always been treated, like, super soft and gently by everyone in our family for some reason. And everyone is, like, afraid to call her out. And that's literally what my aunt said to me. But then a year later, she was yelling at me that I need to give my mom more credit. And all this other stuff. And it was because my mom and I still had tension. And I was still not over a lot of the things that have happened, because, like, we never had any, like, I understand that you have to let things go, but when something is, like, when certain behaviors and things are just repeated, and then, like, in that time frame, my mom was, like, doing the same things over again, putting men before her kids, like, not before me, but before my younger siblings who still lived under her roof and who she was still responsible for caring for. She literally met a man, and within 2 months, she had never met him before, and within 2 months, she had moved her and my younger siblings into his duplex, where she lived in the lower unit and my younger siblings lived in the upper unit. So technically, they weren't even in the same dwelling. Like, yes and no, depending on how you want to look at it. They had separate doors and separate locks. So, to me, that would be like 2 separate apartments. And that sort of thing, like, in the moment, I bit my tongue, and everyone else was like, oh, we're just so happy for your mom. We're hoping that this is the one for your mom. You know, because my mom wants to get married and have that kind of life. But, like, that ended up going up in flames. The dude literally wound up in the middle of the night kicking my mom, and then going upstairs and kicking out my siblings in the middle of the night. And they had to get up at like 2 a.m. And my siblings don't even understand that that was, like, really wrong of my mom to put them in that position. They really, like, I've talked with them about it, and they really don't see anything wrong with it. Like, they think it was annoying. They didn't like that my mom was drinking more and stuff, but, like, they don't understand, like, just how bad that actually is. And so, anyway, my mom and I finally had, like, a final falling out, and I finally was just like, I am done with you. Like, I am actually done with you. Because she also started treating me cold. And, it was because I had talked about being abused by one of my great aunts who watched me growing up a lot. And I tried to talk to my mom about how bad they treated me, because for a couple of years, we basically lived with them through the week because my mom worked third shift in a town over. So after school, she was already having to drive and make the drive to work. And so we got picked up by the bus and we were taken to my great aunts. And I felt like my great aunt hated me growing up because she literally picked on me. She she would scream at me because I was like a year or two younger than her son. And basically, like, it was a competition, and she put me down all the time and then would raise her son up and tell me how much, like, worse I was than her son. And I would also get blamed for things. So, like, he would do something, he would tell her I did it, and then she would just believe him and she would not believe me and she would just call me a liar. So, like, the final falling out was I tried to talk to my mom about that, and she literally said, I believe that you believe that she did that. And I got very upset. And I went to the bathroom. And I came out and I was like, all right, I guess I don't want to talk about it because, like, I couldn't believe that my mom was really doing that. Like, I thought that we were finally rebuilding the relationship. I finally felt safe to talk to her about how badly this family member treated me. And then she basically told me that she would pick that family member over me. Like, she said, I understand how you feel, but I just can't see, like, that person's name. Like, I can't be out of their life. And I was like, you know, once again, like, I'm your child. And even if you maybe think I'm exaggerating, you know, or whatever, like, you should still at least, like, maybe think about it a little bit. And she didn't. Like, she just kind of didn't care. Because then if she gives any, and I think I know why, because if she gave credit to that family member treating me like that, you know, then that, and she would, like, she doesn't want to have to take accountability for the fact that she was the one who brought me there. I mean, she saw the way that my aunt treated me. My mom kind of did the same thing, but to a lesser extent. Like I said, my younger siblings were favored. My family has told me since I've come out, you know, as gay, they have told me that they've known that I was like that since I was like 4 years old. Some of them have said they've known that I was since I was born. My family is also incredibly homophobic, so it makes you wonder, like, did they literally just kind of already hate me when I was like 5 years old, 10 years old, whatever, because they knew that I was going to be this way, or that at least they thought that? I kind of feel like, at least for my great aunt, definitely. She hates gay people. She absolutely hates them. But up until my mom and I went no contact and everything, I was good enough to come do her dishes and clean her toilets for her. I was good enough to do all that while she knew. But then, once I stopped taking everything from everyone in my family and just being like, they're like, basically I was a bitch. Like, I was a bitch boy. They treated me like that. And my family just walked all over me. And I know that some people don't understand how that could happen and how a child could be, like, taken advantage of by their adult family members, but it happened, and it happened a lot to me. Not in a, you know, actual kind of way. I will say I was very fortunate that that never happened to me ever in any form, but in, like, emotionally, physically, financially, all of that. I had to go through a lot from not everyone in my family, like, not, you know, distant relatives and stuff, but just my immediate family, the ones that really raised me. My grandfather, I don't think emotionally or whatever abused me. He would get verbal, like, he would get mean, but, like, I guess, like, it was not that often. It didn't happen that much. And he actually would apologize when he lost his temper. Which, like, maybe adults shouldn't lose their temper in the first place, but he would actually apologize and say, like, I'm sorry that I was mean to you and that I, you know, yelled at you and stuff, and he would explain why. My grandma my grandma didn't really yell that much. My grandma more would get upset, and I don't really think she was abusive either. But my grandma knew exactly what was going on with my mom, and my grandma knew exactly what kind of a person my mom was, and she's said that she should have just raised us. Like, she should have just taken us and raised us herself. So, but that does very little for, like, after you are, already an adult and done with being raised. So, after my mom and I had our final falling out because of me trying to talk with her about my great aunt, and then also so after that conversation, my mom went cold. And she stopped responding to me and all that stuff. And then I called my grandmother one night because I knew that my grandmother, my mom, and my sisters were all doing stuff together. My grandmother didn't know that that kind of thing was going on because my mom was keeping it a secret that she was treating me like that. She wasn't letting it, be known. So on that phone call, we finally talked for the first time because she had been ignoring me, ignoring my calls, ignoring my text messages. And at this point, I hadn't gotten any of my tax money. Oh, so what happened was my mom told me she was going to pay for, I think it was like my phone bill or something. And she paid for my plan for me online. And she was like, I want to do that for you to help you out. But then after the conversation about my aunt and my great aunt, and I was trying to tell my mom about that, my mom changed her mind basically and decided that the about $180 that she paid off for me, she took that out of my tax refund. But the thing is, my mom hadn't sent me any of my tax refund that year at all. And so I was like calling her and texting her like, when are you going to do it? And the only thing she responded with was like, she'll get to it, basically. And so I'm kind of panicking because I'm seeing the signs and I'm realizing like she might actually just keep it because she is petty and she is like, she's behaving the way that she used to when I was a child, and she was going to punish me for like stupid shit. And she's very unfair. She always says life is unfair, so she thinks it's okay for her to be unfair to us. And so I called her the night that I called my grandma the night I knew they were all together, and I was kind of playing the game, and I was like, I talked to all of them, and I was like, can I talk to mom? And grandma was like, oh, sure. And I talked to mom, and she was like, very like, I was like, hey mom. And she was like, hi. And I was like, so then I knew she was going to be like that. So I was like, I was just wondering how things went. And she was like, oh, they went good. She literally like exactly like that. And so I was like, okay, I was wondering about my money. Like, and then she was like, I don't even really remember. She wasn't really rude because, my grandma and my sisters were, around. She just kind of like agreed that she will do it soon. And then within the next couple days, she sent the money. And she only sent me $600 instead of the $800 that I was supposed to get. And then she wouldn't respond, and she wouldn't respond about why. And then she told my grandmother and everybody else, like, that she paid the bill and whatever. And the phone call, that conversation where he had the phone call was when she told me, oh, I'm going to pay this bill for you because I want to do that. So you could look at it as, like, I should have just, like, been okay with this. Like, I should have understood that, like, she changed her mind and, like, she doesn't owe that to me. Like, I will fully say that, but she wasn't willing to acknowledge that. Like, she wasn't willing to acknowledge that she did that 180. So to the rest of my family, she made it look like I was just basically demanding more than what I should. And that really made me upset because she does that kind of thing all the time. That is her way of manipulating things to make her look like the victim and make her look like whatever, like the good guy. And so that was the final straw for me. And I was like, if you don't at least like acknowledge that you told me over the phone that you were doing that because you wanted to, I am done. And like, I can't do this anymore. And then she replied, vice versa. I can't do this anymore either. And she tried to turn the tables. And at that point, that's when I lashed out and I called her the see you next Tuesday and a bitch. And then I blocked her. And then I took a nap because I needed to. And I took a nap for 4 hours because this was like 9 o'clock in the morning. I woke up at 1 p.m. and I got an email from my grandmother stating that she could not believe how I was talking to my mom. She can't believe what I'm doing. And she will no longer be speaking with me, and she's distancing herself until she feels I'm a rational individual. And I have shown that I'm a rational individual. And at this point, I blocked every single member of my family, except for my siblings. And I tried to talk to them, but then they basically started regurgitating the exact same things that my grandma said in her email. They did not want to hear anything I had to say about, like, the reasons why my mom and I were arguing. And neither did my grandma. She didn't answer my calls. She didn't answer my texts. She actually sent them all straight to, like, voicemail. And so I removed myself. And then my siblings, you know, I gave them, like, a week. And they also, like, they didn't want anything to do with me. So I removed myself. And nobody wanted to know the context. Everybody, like, just wanted to... I mean, I think it's because of the CPS thing and everything else. So my family was sort of, like, kind of looking for a reason for me to be the problem. And, they know how my mom is. My grandmother has said that my mom is a pathological liar since I was like 10. I've heard that from everyone in my family, how my mom is a pathological liar. So they know that she is the way she is. But in that moment, they chose to just sort of take the easy way instead of like understanding me or anything because they didn't want a big family drama. And I'll admit, like, sure, that's like no one wants to deal with that, but it wasn't fair to me. And that is what I told my siblings, is like, I deserve fairness, and this is like why I had to leave. Like, and it wasn't that I had some victim mentality and whatever. It was like I truly just had to leave the situation. I was unwanted. I was unwanted, and you don't stay where you're not wanted. So, anyway, I just kind of wanted to add all of this context, and I'm gonna probably title this, like, I still miss my siblings, but, or something, like, I don't know. Because I do still miss them. And, you know, I understand, like, they can feel however they want to about me. It was pretty selfish of me to keep them blocked for the amount of time that I did, because I kept them blocked for about 2 years. But to be honest, if they wanted to, they could have called on, like, someone else's phone, or, like, they make new Snapchats, new Instagrams, new stuff all the time. Like, they could have just, like, added me or something on those. Like, they did have their ways. They definitely could have if they wanted to. And since they've been unblocked and since, like, we've been in touch, like, they haven't wanted to either. So, and I understand that definitely could be a lot because of the fact that we haven't been in touch for a couple of years, because... But then it's like, it's not just because I blocked them. Like, I felt like they might as well have blocked me with the way that they were feeling towards me and all of that stuff. And, like I said, they also were treated better. At this point, CPS had been involved. CPS wasn't involved until I was 19. So I really was abused more than they were. Like, that's just fact. So I'm not mad at like the person who commented a whole lot of stuff, but I also knew leaving that my siblings were not in as much danger or going to be treated as badly as I was. And I also knew that like my family couldn't let the situation go anywhere close to as bad as it had been, because CPS had already been involved once, and that was like the last thing that they wanted. So I don't really think that I neglected them by doing what I did, because I didn't have responsibility for them in the first place. I am not their father. I am not their mother. I am not even like I'm only a few years older than them. So that's kind of unfair to me to act like I have that amount of responsibility towards them. I do love them, and I think as an older brother, I owe it to them to love them and all that kind of stuff. And I will admit that I failed to show that to them and give that to them. And I will, maybe that could be a form of neglect, but I do kind of take issue with acting as though I had some type of responsibility that I did not have. Maybe some people will think that's like cold of me or wouldn't agree, but that is my stance. And I don't really have anything else to say. I'm honestly pretty happy with my life at this point, other than like, I have to do what I have to do. So like, yeah, I don't love working 2 jobs, but my grandpa growing up, he worked until he was literally like 59, and he only stopped working because he had to because of health. And he was working 48, 56 hours a week because he would do 40 hours and then he would always pick up an extra shift or 2. At least 1, a lot of weeks 2. So it's kind of just like, I'm not middle class, I'm not, whatever. I am low, like I am poor. So I have to work a lot. That's fine. But I'm happy with myself. I'm happy with my home. I'm happy with my partner. We have to work on things all the time because as people, we're constantly evolving and changing, and relationships are too. But, I've accepted that me and my siblings also may never actually really be in each other's lives at this point. It's not really at this point about whether or not I would want that. It's sort of about if they would want that. And they've kind of non-verbally expressed that they're not really interested, because, I have reached out and I have tried to talk, and like, they're the ones that want to keep it like very minimal. Like, they've responded to me, but I can get the signs that they're sort of responding because they feel like they have to at least give me something. But I can tell like it's not really something that they may want to do, and maybe that's like, that will change, maybe it won't. I will not hold anything like that against them. I will never stop loving them, and I will never stop like rooting for them in life. But I am not going to try and force myself to be in someone's life who doesn't want me to be in their life. And so that's really all I wanted to say. And I believe that they want the best for me too. But the last thing that I said to my younger sibling was like, I really feel like there's a difference in our perspectives. And I really feel like there's a lack of wanting to come to an understanding. And it's not that I want them to agree with me, but like when they haven't even heard it out, like I said earlier with the whole thing with my mom, and there's a lot of other stuff that like they don't know, because why would I have told my younger siblings about every little thing that my mom did to me? Like, we weren't like that growing up. We didn't go to each other because my mom made us like isolated. We would get in trouble just for being in each other's rooms because my mom would be like, you guys can't even be together. You guys are going to fight. So get in your own rooms. So like we were kind of turned against each other. And then like as we got older and we were like able to play outside and stuff, and we were like less in my mom's hair, and she didn't feel like she needed to control as much, then we would like play with each other a bit more. But like we weren't really like allowed to just like, I don't know. We also didn't get along the best up until we were older. So that is like kind of fair on my mom's part, but like my mom took it to the where like we didn't even ever get the chance for like a couple of years. And it wasn't just because we didn't get along. It was also because her boyfriend literally did not like kids. The one that she had from the time I was like 8 years old until I was about 12. They were together for 4 years. He literally would get mad at us for talking at dinner time, which most people would be like, that's where you talk about your day. He would come in and tell us, you are supposed to eat and get done and leave the table. Dinner time is not social hour. And then for like the living room and the kitchen, we were told you need to do what you're doing, like get your snack or get whatever and go back to your room or go outside. The kitchen and the living room are not for kids. They are not kid spaces. Which that was very different from before she had that boyfriend, because before that boyfriend, we were used to sitting in the living room and watching movies and playing games like at our own will. Like we felt comfortable to do that. And then he completely changed that. And my mom let him. My mom let him do that. My mom actually enforced it too. Like she would blame him and she would be like, well, this is what Dean likes. Well, I accidentally said his name and I don't even care. He's a piece of shit. But, you know, my mom just like let it happen. And for 4 years he would scream at her and they would both scream at each other, but like he was definitely more of the abusive one. 'Cause my mom is sort of the type of woman who just like fawns over a man. She needs a man. A man just completes her life. Like that's pretty much my mom's personality. She's a single mom that needs a man. Like, and so she would, you know, sometimes snap back at him and whatever, but a lot of times my mom would just like sit there with her head down and let him yell at her, which is actually pretty bad and sad. And like, I actually would go in the bathroom and I would record it on my little phone that I had at the time. And I played those recordings for the rest of my family and showed what was going on. And I am the reason that relationship ended, was because I exposed it. And then I also talked with my grandfather about how like I literally would rather stay at the neighbor's house because I feel more like that's my home because of my mom's boyfriend. And then I told my mom that. And the night before he moved out, my mom got home from work and then they started fighting, and then I was outside taking the dog around, and then he started saying, my mom was like, be quiet to him. And he was like, no, he can hear us. He can hear us. He can hear this. He knows. So like they were, you know, literally about me and what I said. And like, I was the reason why that relationship ended, was because I exposed it to my family and stuff. Like, I had to be really brave as a kid. I had to deal with a lot. And my siblings grew up in the same household, so they had to deal with a lot too. But I was way more targeted than they were. And so while they were neglected a lot and whatever, they were also left alone where I was not, because I was the oldest. And then also they were girls, and so I do feel like that kind of, like, they got pampered and stuff more. You know, they did also have like other expectations than I did. Like, they were expected to look pretty and look more presentable, whereas like I could get away with just like having bedhead until I was like 15. Um and so I will say, like, they were criticized a lot more for their appearance, but that was really the only thing that they were like whatever more than I was. And anyway, I really don't have anything else to say anymore. That's kind of like pretty much the full story, I think, that really matters. So thanks for listening, if you did, for the whole 40 minutes that I just rambled, and have a good one.